One of the most memorable speeches I ever heard involved gestures, voice, and movement. One of the best evaluations that I remembered was when the evaluator said, "Ashley, you need acting lessons." Acting lessons? Well, why not? Because acting is a pre-planned choreography of the things we need to do once we're out there speaking. We definitely need to be able to use gestures, we need to be able to use voice, and we need to be able to use movement. And this becomes a choreography of our speaking abilities. Without it, it doesn't work. When you start to think about gestures, gestures are very common. When we are speaking at the lectern, we're telling a story or we're doing something else, but the fact of the matter is, we are communicating directly with the audience. They expect us to have movements, and sometimes the movements are considered to be natural. For instance, we know lots of people who have big movements, and they're large about what they do, and they're all over the place with their gestures. But there are other people that the gestures are a raised eyebrow, perhaps a grimace. We all understand what these gestures are doing. They have to be purposeful, however, in the context of the speech. For example, there was an international speech contestant who was demonstrating to the audience the jacking up of a car. He was down with the lever going up and down, and screech, 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 screech. Combined with that gesture and the noise that he was making, everybody got the idea. The car was not there, but the idea was. Then, of course, there was another speech contestant who decided that he was going to show us how a machine would be used to validate a parking ticket. And to do this, he went ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Everybody understood. The gesture was appropriate and obvious. Not all gestures are so obvious, but then again, they don't have to be. Sometimes we just recognize things pretty obviously. For instance, if you see somebody who says, "This is how it should be," and points, or perhaps they're reaching out in a different way, or maybe they're just standing with their hands on their hips. So, we have to couple our gestures with the voice that we are using. It's part of the skill. It's part of the choreography that the speaker has to do. Now, when we start thinking about voice, remember that the voice is important because it conveys in and of itself. Consider this. What if you were listening to a radio program? What if you were listening to the people as they talked? You could tell the hard-bitten detective, or perhaps that fast-testing, speaking wise guy, or maybe the woman who was scared. It's because the choreography for that particular show is all about getting the audience to understand through hearing. Nothing else is there. Consider a mime. All you have is what he shows you. There is no verbal. So the gestures, creating the image in your mind, the audience. And then lastly, there is the stage. The wonderful, huge stage. You're free to move about and take the audience with you as long as you explain to them what you're doing. Supposing you're going to describe the life of a young person from young to old. You can take them from one end to the other and change their age as they do that. Perhaps you wish to place things. There was an international speech contestant who talked about his father and his passing. But he talked about his father in his favorite chair and how he would sit there day after day until one day he saw his father, and he reached over, and his father was gone. The chair was imaginary, but in our minds in the audience, we knew what was happening there. What you put on the stage, you have to be very careful about, because let's face it, If you're going to ask people to come with you through a graveyard, you don't want to step on the graves, do you? No, you have to make it obvious you're moving around. Also, if you have placed people, over here is Bill, and over here is John. When you speak with Bill, you have to say, Bill, have you seen John? He's behind me over here. The audience must be told. They must understand. For if you confuse them, you lose them. Very simple. And then, when you think about it, people always have a tendency to bring out props. Props should be hidden unless you're at the right time to use them. And when it's the right time to use them, you bring them out, use them, and then, when you're done, you put them away. The point being is that a prop will distract people if it's used inappropriately. Remember, all of this is about choreography of the visual and the auditory symbols. The audience expects that you will have all of this all set up ahead of time. They will expect that they will be able to follow along and understand that everything that you are doing has a point, a purpose, and a place. And when you think about it, when you talk about the gestures, the vocal, and you also add in the movements, you're talking about a complete choreography. Now, as for acting, well, whatever makes it better for you. Because the whole point is to use all the tools you have in the delivery of your speech.